is self-defeating. Chancellor, how do you respond? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick, and it's great to talk to you as ever. I absolutely agree that we've got to do more to grow our economy. The record over the last few years has not been good enough. Now, I have defied the forecasts this year. The OBR said in the spring that our economy would grow by 1%. They now say it will grow by 1.5%. That follows up with revisions from the IMF, the OECD, and the Bank of England as well. In fact, the IMF say we'll be the second fastest growing economy in the G7 this year. But it's why we're doing things like trade deals with the US, with India and the EU. It's why we're ripping up our planning rules, reforming regulation, getting pension saving working for the economy. And it's why yesterday we did a big package to support entrepreneurs, because I want to send that message. If you build in Britain, Britain will back you. And that's what the budget was all about yesterday, growing the economy and putting more money in working people's pockets.
Surely the budget, as I understand it, Chancellor, was an extra 780,000 low earners will be dragged into paying income tax, 920,000 more middle earners will end up paying the higher rate, and 4,000 will be caught in the upper 45p rate. That's 1 million people you've dragged in to pay for this, isn't it, Chancellor?
Well, those come in 2028, and of course the previous government froze those tax thresholds for 7 years. We have extended that. I do recognise that is asking working people to contribute a little bit more, but we managed to keep that to an absolute minimum by bearing down on waste and inefficiency in public spending, with further efficiency targets and concrete measures announced yesterday. Why we are taxing the gambling companies a bit more. Why we're asking
But it's not a little bit more. It's not a little bit more if you're a middle earner, is it? In some instances, you're being brought into the 40p tax rate.
Well, that's from 2028, but next year we are taking £150 off of everyone's bills, whether you're a pensioner or somebody that goes out to work every day. And I recognise that the cost of living is still people's biggest concern. It's why we're freezing prescription charges for another year. It's why we are freezing rail fares. The first time that's happened in 30 years, and doing things like expanding free childcare for working parents. All of this is aimed at reducing the cost of living and ensuring that families can spend more of their money on things that matter to them.
You removed the two-child benefit cap. I mean, why should families in benefits not face the same financial choice about having children as those who support themselves in work? Why not? Why not, Chancellor?
Well, 60% of the people, Nick, 60% of people that will benefit from the two-child change are people in work. But child poverty is pervasive, and there are a lot of people who go to work every day but still aren't earning enough to, be able to put food on the table and pay their energy bills. This will lift directly 450,000 kids out of poverty. And yesterday I was in a hospital chatting to the nurses there, and they said that kids end up in hospital with respiratory problems because they are living in cold and damp homes. That is not acceptable in one of the richest countries in the world. And 60% of kids that will benefit from this have parents that are going out to work and doing the right thing.
How are you defining poverty?
It's 60% of medium incomes. That's how poverty is measured. It has been in this country for a long time.
So what does that actually mean? What is the median income, Chancellor?
The median income is around £35,000 a year. I haven't got the exact numbers to hand.
And you're convinced that this will lift those children out of poverty? How is it a necessary equation? One follows the other.
Well, this puts more money in the pockets of low-income families. And when you talk to teachers about the poverty that many children are experiencing, when you talk to nurses and those who work in the health service, when you go to food banks and see working parents turning up at a food bank because after the rent, after the energy bills, after doing those things, there's not enough money for the essentials. And so I'm not going to make any apologies for lifting kids out of poverty.
But
we've got a welfare system that writes off too many people as too sick to work and writes off too many kids before they even have a chance.
But we understand people are signing up now at a rate of about £5,000 5,000 a day, 5,000 a day. And I read for those in benefit, there could be a lift. 560,000 families will get an extra £5,310 per year. This is alarm clock Britain paying for Benefit Street, isn't it, Chancellor?
Well, as I've just said, 60% of the people that benefit from this that have parents in work, and I don't think children should be punished by this pernicious policy any longer. And the cost to society of this is huge. You know, the cost for councils of temporary accommodation when people can no longer afford the rent, putting families in B&Bs, kids having to move school all the time because parents are moved from one B&B to another lot of temporary accommodation. And there's costs for years to come because all the evidence shows that kids that are growing up poor are less likely to get into work and more reliant on the welfare state in the future for them. So this is a good investment in those kids to give them the chances that I want for my kids and everyone wants for their kids. And it also saves money for taxpayers on that accommodation, on those additional health costs, and ensuring that those kids grow up to be productive adults contributing to society.
Chancellor, the last time you dominated the airwaves in this fashion was earlier this month when you came on breakfast radio and breakfast television and you clearly indicated there could be a rise in income tax, possibly the level of 2p. Why did you change your mind?
Well, we have a number of forecasts during the process, and over the course of the last few weeks, those forecasts moved around a lot. But I did want people to understand the context for this budget, which was
so there was a possibility of a 2p raise. I do apologise talking over you, but there was a real possibility of a 2p raise, and you and your colleagues decided against it because of some figures that came in. What were those figures?
I'm not going to go through all the different forecasts that we had, but it's an interactive process where we give policies to the Office of Budget Responsibility. They cost them. They look at the indirect effects on the wider economy. I wanted a package that reduced the cost of living, reduced NHS waiting lists, and reduced government debt and borrowing. And we've achieved that without putting up income tax, national insurance or VAT, although I recognise, as we started this interview, that from 2028, more people will be pushed into paying taxes or paying taxes at a higher rate.
You mentioned the OBR on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being incandescent. How angry were you at yesterday's leak?
I mean, look, I found out about it when I was in the House of Commons chamber. It is clearly unacceptable that the Office of Budget Responsibility...
But I wanted a number from you, Chancellor. You're good on numbers. 1 to 10, 10 being incandescent. Where were you on the anger scale?
Well, look, at the higher end, Nick. But Richard Hughes has written to me last night apologising. There's an urgent review going on to see exactly how this was able to happen. That will report to me very quickly.
All right, lastly, talking about disagreements, tell us about the bust-up with London Mayor Sir Sadiq Khan. What went on in your office?
I don't recognise that. Yesterday in the budget, we've put in money for the Lower Thames crossing, which eases congestion within London, and also the DLR extension out to Thamesmead. And in London, kids are going to be lifted out of poverty from this budget, and are going to have £150 off their energy
I wasn't
bills.
referring to yesterday.
Just a couple of weeks ago.
I was referring to a report started by the New Statesman, picked up by the Standard. You told Sir Sadiq earlier this year to, quote, get out of my office as he tried to negotiate more funding for the capital. What more can you tell us about this, Chancellor?
I don't recognise that characterisation. I've got a great relationship with Sadiq, and I saw him just a couple of weeks ago at Remembrance Sunday at the Cenotaph, and I was pleased yesterday to be able to set extra support to get that DLR to boost growth and get more houses built in that part of London.
OK. So, lastly, with the changes, having said that having said before that it was all fully costed, last year you fixed the foundations, can you assure my listeners now now, read my lips, no more tax increases as and when you present next year's budget. There will be no threshold moves, no tax increases. Everything is now securely fixed and the foundations set. Chancellor.
No Chancellor can predict the future or write next year's budget, but I made my choices yesterday to get NHS waiting lists down, cut the cost of living and reduce the debt and the borrowing. I think they were the fair and the necessary choices in the circumstances that I faced, but Chancellors' governments have to respond to events. But look, I've doubled the size of that headroom against our fiscal rules yesterday so that we can withstand the shocks, which I'm sure will continue to come our way.
Grateful for your time, Rachel Reeves, Chancellor of the Exchequer, joining us here on LBC. 6 minutes after 8, we're going to delay the news because let's get straight to the reaction from the Shadow Chancellor, Sir Mel Stride, who's been listening to that. And obviously you saw and heard yesterday as their budget was outlined. I was watching some of it. Can I suggest at times there was almost an incredulous look on your face, Sir Mel? I've not had the opportunity to speak with you, and obviously I want my listeners to hear your take on what you heard yesterday and what you're hearing on what's called the broadcast round this morning.